A young man watched a man who raised him died of hunger, and for 30 years he refused to let himself ask why. This is that story. Welcome to Very Human History. My wife and I take a moment from the past and turn it into a conversation about your life right now. My name is Sergio.
And I'm Zaira.
If you're new here, subscribe. Before we start, sweetie, I always start with a question for you that relates a lot to the episode that we're going to discover today. Have you ever kept believing something even after you started seeing signs that it wasn't true?
For me, this happened when I was younger.
Uh huh.
And it was when my parents were getting a divorce. I started noticing that shift. But as a kid, your stable ground is your family. Your stability is your family. So the moment like your parents fight, you kind of feel that ground it shakes a little. So when they would like talk about stuff that we needed for the house or just have conversations pertaining to like, oh, the kids need stuff for school, we need stuff for the house. Those kind of conversation just kind of like gave me hope
Okay.
to be like, okay, things are okay. But something in the back of my head, be like, they're just talking about stuff that we need. It's not the talking that we do when things are normal in the house. So for a very long time, even though I was little, like I wanted to ignore the way things were going down on my house because things were not getting better as the months kept going by. And I just didn't want to come to terms that that stable ground that we had, it was getting broken and broken even more. So even though I was too young, I understood that, that things were coming to an end. But I just was holding on to the little hope that I had whenever they spoke to each other. That's when I have felt that contradiction in your head that you seen things that are not okay, but in the back of your head you want it to be okay.
The question is for you guys. What happens when things you believe turn out to be wrong? Saida told us about a time she kept believing something, even when everything around her said otherwise. But here is why that happens. When something you believe turns out wrong, you have two options. You can say the belief was wrong, or you can say you were wrong. Saying that you were wrong, if you think about it, is easier because when you say, well, I missed something, or I should have paid closer attention, or that was a mistake, that is survivable. But saying that a belief was wrong, that's harder because that belief is the foundation. And you put things on top of that foundation, decisions, years of your life, sometimes your whole sense of who you are. So most people pick the easier one. They blame themselves. As kids, usually children of divorced parents, they tend to blame themselves when there is trouble at home.
Yes.
And that happens because that way they get to keep everything they believe about themselves. They don't have to admit that the foundation is in trouble. So, related to the episode that we're talking about today, in 1959 in China, an 18-year-old man confronted with reality picked up the easier choice. He believed in Mao Zedong, in his country's political system. And when everything around him said otherwise, blaming himself was easier than admitting that. But quick question. Is there something, you guys, in your life right now that you rather blame yourself than question your belief? Tell us in the comments below. Now, let's get into the story. It's 1958. Mao Zedong stands before the Chinese Communist Party and makes a promise. In 15 years, China will make more steel than Britain, maybe even catch up to America. The plan is called the Great Leap Forward. Villages across China are told to stop farming the way they always have. Instead, families are ordered to build small furnaces in their backyards and melt down whatever metal they can find: pots, pans, farm tools, door handles. The goal is steel. Mao wants proof fast that China can outperform Britain and catch up to the West. In the Hubei province, an 18-year-old man named Yang Jisheng believes every word of it. He's a good student, sharp, loyal to the party. He spent his time at the boarding school working on the newspaper for the Communist Youth League, the kind of job you get when your teacher trusts you. He writes essays. He writes a poem, praising the Great Leap Forward, praising the future Mao has promised to the country. He has no reason yet to doubt any of it. The radio says harvests are record-breaking. The newspapers say the same. Officials in his own province report grain numbers higher than anyone has ever seen. Yang believes them. Back home, in the village that raised him, the man he calls his father, really his uncle, the one who took him in and raised him as his own, is still working the fields the government has told him to leave half-tended in favor of the furnaces. Yan does not know it yet, but 300 miles away from the young man's writing points about the future, the tools that grow his family food are already being melted down. April 1959. A year has passed since Yang Jisheng wrote his point about the Great Leap Forward. He's still at boarding school, still working the newspaper for the Communist Youth League, still believing the future he wrote about. He hasn't heard from home in weeks. He assumes no news is good news. Then, a friend from his village runs into the schoolyard out of breath. "Your father is dying of hunger," he says. "Hurry, get some rice if you can." Yang doesn't understand it at first. His father has a farm. Farms have food. He grabs what rice he can carry and starts walking. Along the way, he passes the backyard furnaces from a year ago, the ones his own village built. Most of them sit cold now. No one has iron left to melt. What they had, plows, hoes, the tools people actually need to farm, they were melted months ago. He passes fields that should have already been full of crop this time of year. Half of them are barely taken care of. There aren't enough hands left to work them. There are too many people pulled onto furnace duty, onto irrigation projects, onto anything the party called more urgent than farming. He tells himself it is a mistake, a misunderstanding. Then he reaches the top of the hill above his village and stops. No smoke over the roofs, no dogs barking, nothing to suggest anyone down there is cooking dinner at all. Yan walks down into the village. It's quiet in a way he's never heard it before. This place always had dogs, barking at strangers, running along the path. Not today. Not one in sight. The trees along the road are stripped down. Someone peeled them down to the wood itself, in strips, all the way up higher than a person could reach. They were eating the trees. He passed the spot where the pond used to be. It's just a hole now, dug down past the water line. Somebody went looking for roots in the mud, anything that might still be alive down there. He reaches the house, pushes the door open. There is no rice anywhere, not a grain of it. He checks the jar where his family always keeps some. They are empty. When he opens the bedroom door, his father is lying there. When he sees Yan, he tries to lift his hand, just a small motion, the kind you make to wave someone over. His arm doesn't move more than a few inches from the ground. Yan cooks what rice he brought as fast as he can. He kneels down and tries to get his father to eat. His father can swallow it. His body won't take it anymore. Yan stays with him for 3 days. On the third day, his father dies. Yan is 19 years old now. He buried the man who raised him in the village where he was born. And he still believes, right up until this exact moment, that his country, his leader, was telling him the truth, that the communist future is yet to come. In the days after the funeral, Yan doesn't blame the body. He doesn't blame Mao. He doesn't blame the plant that pulled the tools off of his family's farm and sent them into a furnace. He blames himself. If he hadn't gone away to school, if he had stayed home and worked the fields instead of writing poems about the future, maybe his father would have had enough to eat. Maybe none of this happens if Yan had just been there. He has no way yet to see it any differently. He's been told his whole life that the body doesn't make mistakes like this. That if people are suffering, it's bad luck or bad weather or somebody failing to work hard enough, not the plant itself. He goes back to school. He finishes his education. In 1964, he joins the Communist Party, the same party that was in charge of everything he just watched happen. 2 years later, he becomes a journalist for Shisui, the state news agency. He writes what he's told is the truth. The same way officials once wrote that his province was having record harvests, while his father starved a few hundred miles away. It takes years and a second disaster, the Cultural Revolution, tearing through the country he still believes in, before something in Yan starts to crack. Before he starts wondering whether the story he spent his whole career writing is the one that actually happened. He hasn't done anything about that question yet. Not for a long time. By the 1990s, Yan had spent over a decade as a journalist inside China's state system. He has access most people never get to archives, to internal reports, to documents that were never meant for the public to read. He starts using that access to ask the question he buried 30 years earlier. What actually happened to his father? The first file he pulls is from his own province, a report filed the same month his father died, listing a harvest number that never happened. He starts pulling more, reports from other counties, other provinces, the same pattern again and again. Numbers too high to be real, filed by officials who knew the state would take its share based on whatever they wrote down. He finds something else in the archives that stops him. Before the numbers were faked, food had been free for a while. Whole communes eating out of shared kitchens with no limits, no rationing, because the same false numbers had convinced everyone that there was more than enough to go around. People ate like there was no end to it. Then the free food ran out, and so had the actual grain, because the numbers were never real. His father isn't named in any of these files, but he's the reason Yan keeps reading. He keeps counting. What starts with one village, one province, becomes a number that by the time he's done runs into the tens of millions. For years, almost no one outside a small circle knows what Yang is doing. He works in secret. One archive, one document at a time. In 2008, he finally publishes what he's found, a 2-volume book. He calls it Tombstone. Yan publishes it in Hong Kong instead, and copies find their way back across the border anyway, passed hand to hand, the way information finds people who are looking for it. In 2016, Harvard gives him an award for honest journalism. The Chinese government won't let him leave the country to accept it. He calls the book a tombstone for his father, who died of hunger in 1959, for the tens of millions who died the same way, with no marker anywhere bearing their names, and for a system that made sure for decades no one would ever count them. Sweetie, you have an 18-year-old man that buries his family, his father, and he still doesn't blame the government, he blames himself. When you hear that, what's your first reaction?
I find it mind blowing. You know me. You know me. I'm a skeptic about any authority unless you're God. Like pastors, the government, don't get me started. I find it really incredible that there's people out there just blindly believe everything that the government is saying.
The thing that I think we need to understand about this is that within the context is this guy was raised in a political and belief system. He sees it in the media, he sees it in the newspaper, he sees it from their leaders. Everybody's saying that the great leap forward is amazing, that communism is great, that what we're doing is great. What we should ask is, why is it that there are people that are doubtful at this point? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is something that people actually, they're being fed almost their whole lives. Of course they're going to believe that. And they're going to do it blindly. But the way that I feel about this story is that what the center of this story I think is about is something, a concept called cognitive dissonance. Is our ability as human beings, or inability in a way, to look at two sets of ideas that are opposed to each other and we hold them both in our brain, but we don't really talk about them too much. And I think that's something that's happening to him and that is taking a while. And it is basically because of what you were talking about in earlier in the episode. It is mainly because we usually do not allow ourselves to question or to be faced with whatever is wrong with the set of beliefs that we have, because we are tied, we tie those beliefs to who we are. And when that is tested, we do not want to change it. The other thing, or a good example of this, is that you have the people that believe the government, they believe the numbers and the Harvard's numbers and everything, and they're eating like there is no limit, right?
You know, this reminds me of like a domino effect.
Yes.
I was, I'm sorry.
Hold on. Let me ask you this first.
Okay.
What do you think? What does this reveal about human nature?
Because I was reading about this story. People were lying about numbers because they were afraid.
Yes.
And they didn't want to seem as like the traitors for the vision of their leader.
There is also this ideology, obviously, is communism. And the problem with it is that communism assumes that people are selfless. The thing about capitalism is that it allows that assumption about human beings having their self-interest and using that as a drive for people to accomplish what they need to accomplish and to get ahead. This is how I see it. It's almost like an onion layer. You care about yourself first, then your wife, then your children, then your neighbor. But the more you expand that, you care about them less and less and less.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with communism is that it assumes that everybody's going to care about everybody equally.
Yes.
And that doesn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is that you have this, a good example of this, as the officials are writing down those numbers, as you said, even though they weren't true, and even though they knew that these numbers would bring trouble to the neighborhood, to the town, because if they inflate the numbers, that means that grain, the percentage of the grain that would be taken from them would be higher, and this still just like inflated the numbers. So what do you think is wrong here?
The reason why they lied, it was because they were afraid. Not only being competitive, because they were afraid of what was gonna get, what was gonna happen to them if they didn't meet the vision, or if they didn't meet,
And
not
the,
the numbers.
and the fact that they have to fake the numbers is actually proof of what I was saying earlier. People protect themselves first, even when at the expense of others, because the self-interest is what's underneath everybody. That's what everybody protects. And if I have to save my life first over yours, right, that's the normal thing to do. Everybody's going to do the same thing. So we care more about ourselves than others. And anything that will protect me from something bad, I will do, even if it hurts the other person.
Have you heard those people that they ask, if you see a person drowning and your
Right.
dog is drowning, who do you save? And most of them say the dog.
The dog.
Because like you said, you care about the things that are important to you.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. And so, unfortunately, communism is a system that fights against human nature, and which is why it ends up being wrong, and it ends up hurting a lot of people, like as we heard in the story.
You know what I think it is? I think for people that actually believe in communism, I think it looks pretty on paper,
Yes,
but the execution, like you said, goes against our nature.
and usually,
And it's just, people just take advantage of it. Like people in power just take advantage of it.
and the thing is also that usually, for communism to take hold, it has to be based on tyranny. You have to force people into getting into it. You have
Yes.
to brainwash everybody, and you have to subjugate people that are not supportive of the system, which is why the officials are scared. There is also this phenomenon that is happening that I find a little bit funny. You have the country, the villages are running out of food, but you still have the country doing their best to ship grain to other nations to keep appearances. Why do you think? Why do you think this is happening? What do you think of this?
I think that's what's wrong with communism,
Yes.
It's trying to show that it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. Because like what happened with Germany.
Yes, the Berlin Wall. I was gonna say that.
That's what happened with Germany. It's always like, if it's so great, why do you have to go to this length?
Let's put a wall, but because we're gonna put the wall because we're protecting the people so they don't leave. Even with everything around him saying, "Dude, you need to abort this mission. This is not working."
But do you think it has to do more about the power?
Yes,
It's not like the idea is great because it sounds pretty, but what these leaders have, it's not just that, oh, we believe in the idea, it's just what's in it for them.
yes, there is obviously that, but I think there is also that's what I mentioned earlier. Cognitive dissonance is that inability to see, even when you're facing the truth, you're not willing to be, because a lot of them actually made their identity who they are based on those set of beliefs.
Yeah.
And having to say, actually, I'm wrong, is much, much difficult. And people prefer to jump all hoops that they can to not face the reality of failing, that they have failed, that they have done something wrong. Among Christians, sometimes we hold preconceived ideas or beliefs, even when the Bible contradicts it. But instead of confronting that, we protect that because your faith is very personal and it's very tied to your identity. I have seen leaders, for example, that they've entered a debate. You can see everybody else has shown that they have lost the debate. They don't have the facts, and they still end up not dropping what they believe and just following the truth.
And they end up with it, oh, when Jesus comes, we'll know.
Yes.
Like,
I have seen it so many times. And I think that I am very aware of that, which is why it's funny, but which is why I try my best to care more about the truth than to care more about whether I'm right or wrong. This is what I'm trying to admit. I am admitting that even though I believe what I believe strongly, I am willing to be proven wrong. And not only that, I also assume that there are parts of me or my belief that I have cognitive dissonance. Why? Because I don't know everything. And I
That's a
may
little
have a
bit hard for me.
perspective. Huh?
That's a little hard for me.
Why?
The admitting that you're wrong and things that
Yes.
you believe,
Yes.
because you don't want to look like damn, like what I'm believing is being a lie or something. Like sometimes that's something that I struggle with, especially when it comes to things that are really like personal to me. It's a little bit hard to admit, like, okay, maybe I could be wrong, but it's hard to admit it to other people.
But for you guys, for everybody, for all of us, what is something that you've never actually tested? Because if it turned out to be wrong, it would cost you too much. Yan didn't stay blind for 30 years. He was not slow. He was slow, right? He stayed blind because looking straight at what happened would mean that admitting Mao, that the party that he believed in, everything he built his life around was wrong. So he decided to instead blame himself so that he doesn't lose as much. It's not as painful. And you and I have something like that too. Maybe it's a political belief that you picked up from your parents, that you never actually checked. Maybe it's a belief that you have about God, or something that you were raised to upset, but never actually opened the Bible to confirm if it's true or not. Or maybe, in Zaira's case, is you defended a person for years, even as the evidence kept piling up against them. So here's an actual test that you can do. Find the stronger argument against what you believe, not a weak one that you can knock down easy, the real one, and sit with it for a week. Read it in the words of someone who actually believes it, not a summary of someone who already agrees with you. You should do that because if you don't, everything you build, your decisions, your character, your whole life sits on that belief, never checked, and if that belief is wrong, it won't last forever. It won't hold forever. One day, one fact will show up that you cannot explain away, and it'll all come down at once. And it won't just cost you or your belief, it'll cost who you thought you were. So examine what you believe now so what you build on it later doesn't fall. What happens if this becomes something you actually keep doing? Not just once, but every time. Checking one belief one time is a start, but do it enough times and it changes something in you. You get faster at spotting the gap, the place where what you've been told doesn't match what you're actually seeing. Not just in yourself, in the people around you too. Yan spent 30 years not asking the one question that would save him the pain. That's the habit. Ask early, check now. It's what makes you harder to fool by other people and by yourself. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We are now on episode 24 and we appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, for watching with us, for entertaining our delusion as we learn about history. The reason why we're doing this is there are many reasons why we're doing this, but one of the main ones is because my wife and I, we want to learn some new stuff. We want to have better conversations, higher level conversations. And the way we do that is through this podcast.
And see the world differently too.
Yes. And we appreciate you guys being here. We appreciate you guys subscribing. So what should people do, Zaira?
They should give us a follow.
They should subscribe.
Subscribe and share this video with anyone you know.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.